Welcome back to The Heat. We're talking about the Islamic militant group Boko Haram and its insurgency in Nigeria. Joining me now is Raymond Gilpin. He is the Academic Dean at the Africa Center for Strategic Studies. Also with us is John Campbell. He is a former U.S. ambassador to Nigeria. Gentlemen, welcome to both of you to the show. Ambassador, we just heard from one of our previous guests from London saying that the Nigerian government has been slow to act against the threat posed by Boko Haram. Here we have Africa's most populous country, 180 million people, one of its biggest economies, the continent's biggest economies. It's a major oil exporter. Why is the government not acting against Boko Haram in a more vigorous way?
Well, the government has been extremely slow to respond to the Boko Haram crisis. The reasons for that, I think, are complex. Part of it is where Boko Haram is active is a remote part of the country, far from the center of the Nigerian economy, far from the oil-producing delta, far from Lagos, far from Abuja, the capital. Further, the top levels of the Nigerian government mostly come from other parts of the country, not from the Northeast. In Lagos, even now, there is a remarkable lack of urgency about addressing Boko Haram. Boko Haram, by many, is seen as almost as remote as the moon. But there are also other reasons. Polling data shows that Nigerians are increasingly losing confidence in their government's ability to provide basic security. Part of that is because of what Boko Haram is doing, but part of it is also the result of a wave of kidnapping all around the country, purely mercenary, not particularly political. Under those circumstances, and with national elections only a little more than 2 weeks away, it's not particularly in the government's interest to call attention to what is in effect a grassroots insurrection against the Nigerian political economy.
Right, Raymond Gilpin, is there a danger here that a group like Boko Haram, the ambassador says it's in a remote part of the country, that's where it's active, but is there a danger that its ideology and its activity could spread to other parts of Nigeria, like ISIL did? You know, it moved very quickly, ISIL, over that part of the Middle East. Could that happen in Nigeria?
You know, absolutely. Boko Haram started in around 2002 as a really small protest group, and their ideology then was pretty simple: social and socio-economic issues. And between 2002 and 2009, it expanded. But 2009 was a watershed moment for Boko Haram, with the killing of its first leader in police custody. And since then, the movement spread. But there's a very interesting dynamic to this spread. Unlike ISIS, where they generally spread and hold, Boko Haram they spread fear, and they move on to the next town. So now effectively, there's an area the size of Belgium, about 50,000 square kilometers, that is under what I would call Boko Haram influence and Boko Haram control. And since last year, when the new leader, Shakau, mentioned his intention to establish a caliphate, there have been as many killings related to Boko Haram since last August as there were between 2009 and August 2014. That's well over 5,000 people. And so it is spreading in many ways.
And that area that you talk about, the size of Belgium, we've had reports that they've declared a caliphate there. In fact, the Secretary of State for the United States, John Kerry, even said there is evidence to say that they've declared a caliphate. Ambassador Campbell, political will aside in Nigeria, does the country have the military muscle to take on Boko Haram, you know, retake that part of the country and hold it?
It ought to have. There is a security budget that includes the military and also the police of somewhere between $5 and $6 billion US. The Nigerian army traditionally had been regarded as the strongest in West Africa. And yet, what we have seen is one defeat after another. Anecdotal reports of soldiers being sent into firefights with only 30 bullets. And when they run out of those bullets, they run. What's happening here? There appears to be a breakdown in discipline. One senior Nigerian military officer observed to me that the same divisions that plague Nigerian society, Christian versus Muslim, North versus South, ethnic differences, and so forth, are also present in the military. And there has been concern that Boko Haram may in fact have infiltrated parts of the military. Certainly there have been operations, Boko Haram operations, involving military installations where, oddly, the back gate was left open and the door was not locked. A little bit odd.
Well, they've just taken over an army base in Borno State in this town of Baga. They've been proudly displaying the arms that they've captured. Raymond, we have an election coming up in Nigeria in February. Secretary of State Kerry has been to Nigeria. He's talked with the incumbent, Goodluck Jonathan. He's talked with the opposition leader, the main opposition leader. He's talked with the head of the Electoral Commission. Is that election going to make any difference? I mean, one would imagine that this insurgency and the activities of Boko Haram would be an election issue. I mean, is it going to change anything?
No, one would hope that the election makes a difference, primarily because addressing Boko Haram requires a lot more than a military solution. Sure, the military has not been as effective as it could have been, but the problem is not a military one. It's a governance issue. That's where elections become important. It's also a socio-economic issue. That's where strategic investment and Nigerian policy become important. So couching the elections in those terms rather than military/insurgency terms is more important to addressing Boko Haram, because Boko Haram has a core of extremists. But most of the other followers follow Boko Haram because of these governance and socioeconomic issues. And so how we couch, or how Nigeria couches the elections becomes crucial. Following the debates and the campaigning over the last few weeks and months, it is clear that on the opposition side, there seems to be a coalition, a lot more civil society involvement. On the incumbency side, they're looking at it as a zero-sum existential issue, and this makes it difficult to find the common ground that Nigeria so desperately needs.
Right. Ambassador, there's been a great deal of international attention focused recently on ISIL in the Middle East.
There has.
More recently, we had attention focused on the activities of Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula,
right,
in Yemen. We don't see that kind of attention on Boko Haram in Nigeria, do we?
Well, it was really the kidnapping of the almost 300 schoolgirls from Chibok that put Boko Haram on the radar of most people in the West. And this is regrettable. Nigeria has a population that is larger than that of the Russian Federation. It is truly the giant of Africa. It's said that 1 out of every 4 or 5 sub-Saharan Africans is a Nigerian. It's a country with which we have had an important diplomatic and security partnership for a long time. What happens in Nigeria matters to the United States, and yet attention has focused on Boko Haram only in the past few months.
Raymond, what kind of role can the international community play?
I think there are probably 3 important things that the international community can do. The first is to pay close attention to the elections, make sure that to the extent possible they're fair and inclusive. The second is to support key socioeconomic investment in the north. The gulf between the north of Nigeria and the rest of the country is vast. And I could, regale you with a few statistics, but suffice to say it is vast. And we do need a lot of targeted attention there. Third, and most important, I think we should view Boko Haram as we view other extremist and terrorist groups around the world. We should target their leaders. We should focus on their financing, and we should make sure that we distance them from the rest of society, because they're more of a criminal element at this point than a political movement.
To which I would add, it obscures more than it illuminates to look at Boko Haram as the next front in the international war on terrorism. Boko Haram is very much a product of specifically Nigerian factors, some of which we have been talking about. It's a mistake to try to internationalize it.
Ambassador John Campbell, Raymond Gilpin, thanks to both of you for joining us. And that's all the time we have for. The conversation does continue online, though. Join us on CCTV America's Facebook page to comment on this or any other show, or chat with us on Twitter at @CCTV_America. I'm Arnold Naidu in Washington, D.C. Thanks for being with us.